Yeah, we can see it good. Okay, and I think you can use. This might be worse, brother. However you want to do it, you can probably just do it from there and put through. And then we have it just recording the screen on her laptop. So if you want to maybe sit over here might be better so they can hear you.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to be on camera if you want to, but you could also just sit next to it. Okay, so we're going to get started. We've got Alex here from Central District Health talking about Nutrition 101. So.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alexander Dominguez. Here from Central District Health. We're a local public health department. The counties that we serve are Ada, Elmore Valley, and Boise County. So right now, I'm working as a health education specialist. And one of the things that we do is we do a lot of nutrition-related stuff for the community, whether it be presentations, whether it be events, whether it be cooking classes, many different types of things that we do here at the Public Health Department. And so one thing that I'm going to introduce you all is Nutrition 101. So Nutrition 101 is just something that we work on with everybody in the community to kind of get the fundamentals of nutrition down. So a lot of people that are wanting to start eating healthier, live a healthier lifestyle, whether it be physically or mentally, a lot of the time we look to food, which is the main thing that we do every single day. We're eating that every single day, whether it be either takeout or cooking at home. So one thing I want to talk about is your nutrition, because some of us don't know where to start. Some of us are kind of confused on what's good or bad, and not necessarily bad, but what can benefit us in the long run, whether it be goals that we want to achieve in the future. So what does nutrition mean to you? So a lot of people might just be looking at this picture and might be thinking, well, nutrition just means eating healthier. Which is also valid. That's something that we want to do when it comes to nutrition. We want to eat healthier. We look at the foods on here, and these are the type of foods that we want to kind of eat every single day. A lot of us kind of look at it and think, well, I don't really eat any of those actually every day, or hardly any at all. And so that's one thing is that we want to kind of include within our meals, something that we want to kind of go further. I know a lot of us get cravings. We get cravings for a lot of things. It can be, we're training for a marathon and we're trying to maybe achieve a time and we're trying to lose weight, or we're trying to eat different types of foods. It might be that we're trying to actually gain weight, so we're trying to eat different types of foods to do that. Or it might be, we're trying to quit, maybe we're quitting, either smoking or quitting things that kind of helped us eat in the past. And so now that we're quitting, we're kind of craving different types of foods. It might be even that you're pregnant and you're craving something else. So many things that come into play when we think about nutrition, especially as the type of people that we are when it comes to food. So learning objectives for today, we want to kind of just talk about what we're going to kind of go over. So number one, understanding why nutrition is important for health. Number two, naming the primary macronutrients and the importance each plays in a balanced diet. 3, we want to read food labels with confidence. 4, be empowered to make healthy choices when eating out. And 5, understand how to apply your knowledge at the grocery store and in the kitchen. So nutrition and health, the connection, nutrition equals health. Like we talked about before, what it means to us when we talk about maybe living a healthier lifestyle. We want to kind of promote overall health. We know that it prevents chronic disease. We know it supports our mental health. It improves weight management and enhances longevity and quality of life. So one thing that I want to talk about also is macronutrients. I know a lot of us kind of think of what does macro mean? We've heard of macronutrients, we've heard of micronutrients. So when we look at macronutrients, macro just means bigger, nutrients, we just talked about that. So it's just a bigger picture of what we're eating. So when we're talking about carbohydrates, when we think of carbs, we're always just thinking of bread. And today we're learning that maybe carbs, there's different types of carbs out there. What does carbs do for us? A lot of the time we always tend to think that carbohydrates, we need them when we go running or, when we're trying to, get that energy within us to do something. So yeah, it just provides the energy for the body and brain. It helps regulate our blood sugar levels. It preserves muscle mass, promotes healthy digestion, and source of essential nutrients. So meaning that we're thinking of carbohydrates, we're thinking of our bread, our grains, we're thinking of maybe rice, pasta that we eat. And it really does help us. It helps us physically and mentally. When we're talking about glucose levels, we're trying to think about how many carbs we're eating. Sometimes, when we're talking about glucose, we think, oh, sometimes our glucose falls too low. So we got to eat maybe something that has the sugar, maybe some carbs to kind of get that up. And we want to make sure that whenever we are getting to those lower levels, we're kind of eating our carbs because that's what, helps our brain, helps our mental health, kind of wakes us up, gives us that energy to kind of keep going forward. Protein, involved in repairing and building tissues, supports our immune function, helps you feel fuller for longer, and plays a role in almost every process your body undergoes. So with our proteins, right now we're always talking about, maybe sometimes we kind of see those people that go to the gym, our bodybuilders are kind of always just focused on protein. They're always trying to eat their meats, or they're always just trying to get their protein of the day. There's so many different ways you can get protein. And we can see it when we have our red meats, or maybe it can be turkey, it can be chicken, it could be lean meats, it could be other things such as, maybe protein within yogurt, maybe our milk, our cheeses, so many different types of things we can do to get our protein intake for the day. Our fats, they provide long-lasting energy, they support cell function and brain health, they aid in nutrient absorption, and they're involved in hormone production as well. So we'll talk about fats a little bit more in depth, because when we're talking about fats, there's different types of fats, I know a lot of us, when maybe we might have a high cholesterol or lower cholesterol, they start to talk about, you're eating healthy fats versus your non-healthy fats. And so we'll go in between that, because then you kind of get into HDL and LDL, these different types of things when it comes to fats. We'll start talking about saturated, different types of fats that we can include within our meals and how to go about that. So going into unsaturated, saturated fats, the facts on fat. So our fats that we kind of want to talk about when we're talking about, the ones that help our cholesterol, help our HDL, the ones that lower our bad cholesterol. We're talking about, avocados, we're talking about fats with fish, our almonds, our walnuts, maybe even our, from we get from our oils, those types of fats that we're putting in our food. Those are the ones that are essential fats that our body does need, since it can't produce it itself. So those are the ones we're aiming towards every time we're talking about fats. We're talking about those unsaturated, those good fats, healthy fats that we're trying to include in our meals. Now, there is fats where we want to limit them, not necessarily want to keep them out of our diet, but we do want to limit them because for some of us, we're all different. We all might have, family history of high cholesterol. So some foods can become sensitive to us, and it can kind of increase that. And so when we're talking about, our saturated, we're talking about our butter, we're talking about our cheeses, I talked about our red meats, we're talking about, beef or pork. And so things that we can do to kind of help with that is whenever we're talking about our meats, you said, our protein, like we need our protein for the day. Some people, like I said, you can kind of substitute turkey, you can substitute chicken. Some of us might be big fish lovers, and so fish, seafood is kind of one of those where it might be iffy if we want to kind of include that in our diet. But for those that are into seafood, we can talk about fish, types of fish that help. And when we talk about fish, we want to make sure that we're not frying it. We're talking about one we can put on an oven, one that is actually cooked, not fried. Because then that does involve the whole different thing within triglycerides and other things that go into that. But those are ones we want to limit, not necessarily kind of consume so much of. And the ones we definitely want to lose, artificial trans fats, the ones that, it's really hard to give up because when we celebrate birthdays or parties, it's always a cake, it's always things that are within our diet, no matter what, because we celebrate, we use these to celebrate, and that's fine as well. But it does increase the risk of heart disease, and it does definitely raise those bad cholesterol levels. So we definitely want to lose those. But we kind of want to limit our saturated, and remember, love our unsaturated fats. Those are the ones we're totally aiming for. Now, putting it all together. So when we look at this plate, we're thinking, well, when we put everything together, how do we go about putting it all together? Are we just going to include our bread, or we're just going to include our meats, veggies, our fruits? Then we have our dairy, so we want to make sure that we're talking about how do we include all of this. And that's understanding the food labels. So we'll go to the store, a lot of us kind of get confused, we kind of start to wonder, oh, there's all these numbers, what do they mean? I know that serving size is on there, servings per container, but then there's all these other things, percentages, we're kind of wondering, do I really want to read this? Do I really want to sit here for a good 4 or 5 minutes at the store reading each single thing I'm about to buy, or should I just buy it and move on to the next stop? So what can make it faster is understanding what we're definitely looking for, because there's certain things on here that a lot of us, like I said, if we're training for stuff, we're trying to lose weight, we're trying to gain weight, we're trying to, do things to help our body because we're told that we need to be healthier. Well, there's certain things that we are looking out for to make sure that it's faster when you're at the store. So that way you're not just kind of standing in the aisle and everybody's behind you, like, oh, move aside, Things that we want to definitely pay attention to are serving size. How many servings are in each container? Because when we look at something and it says there's, amounts per serving, there's 10, we got to make sure that we're paying attention to those serving sizes. Because if there's 10 servings and for some reason we just consumed all of this and we just ate 10 whole servings of what the whole container is telling you. And so that might lead to different problems, as in like maybe way too much for our cholesterol, maybe way too much salt, didn't eat enough fiber. So we're going to go into the calories on, okay, we're going to look at how many calories on each thing. So when we talk about 1 gram of fat, it's 9 calories, 1 gram of protein, 4 calories, 1 gram of carbohydrates is 4 calories. So those all add up to all those calories on the nutrition label. When we're talking about these percentages, we're talking about how much is in each thing. We want to make sure for the fats, we just talked about that. So just looking at saturated and trans fats, but we're definitely trying to stay away from, or we're trying to limit. So making sure that we're paying attention to those. Definitely the sodium. We're talking about high blood pressure, or we're just talking about, salt in general. If something's too salty or something's less salty, we want to make sure we pay attention to the sodium, definitely. Carbohydrates, like I said, those are something that we talk about when we're, when we're trying to get that energy. So we got to make sure we're looking at the carbohydrates, because what happens when we eat too much carbs and we don't really use all that energy? Well, that's a whole different discussion on maybe that's how we start to gain weight. So we got to make sure when we're talking about carbohydrates, we look definitely at that on the nutrition label, especially the added sugars and our fiber. Fiber is one thing that we want to look at, because we always want to have fiber every single day. We want to include more fiber in our diet because it helps our digestive system, it helps move everything through the body and out. So we want to make sure we pay attention to our fiber intake. Our protein, like I said, depending on what protein you're eating that day, we want to make sure that we're either eating enough or we're eating less. Like I said, if you get big into, I want to, go to the gym, work on my muscles, well, protein is something that we can definitely look at, whether it be just including in your regular diet. And our percent daily values. So, we're talking about percent daily values, just making sure we pay attention to that as well, especially when we're at the store. So one thing I do want to go over definitely is our sodium. So friend or foe. So a lot of the times when we're talking about sodium, we tend to think about salt. Like I talked about, it can raise your blood pressure if you have a family history of high blood pressure, or maybe you have high blood pressure in general. We want to talk about sodium and how much the intake we need. So sodium is an essential mineral that plays many important roles in our body. And excess sodium can increase the risk of mental health issues. So the American recommends no more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day for most adults. I know it's really easy to go over that, and many people don't realize how easy it is to go over that, just because we tend to drink stuff, we tend to eat stuff. Sodium is what gives our food our flavor. So a lot of the time when we're eating something, we're like, oh, it's not salty enough, or it doesn't taste as good, because, well, it's not as salty enough, it doesn't have that much salt. But when we tend to eat maybe, I don't know, like fried chicken tenders or something, the amount of salt that they're putting into these things. Maybe it's a bag of chips. And when we talked about the nutrition label, maybe a bag of chips has like 16 servings, and then we just eat a whole bag of chips. We also consume a ton of sodium. So we want to make sure that when we do get these cravings, we want to make sure that our sodium intake isn't as high, because that's going to increase your blood pressure. And this sense, we want to make sure we are eating a lot of salt, making sure we're hydrated really well, and drinking a lot of water. So tips that we can do to reduce sodium intake: you can cook at home. Every time you cook at home, you can always look at how much salt you're putting into something. You can look at whatever you're putting into something just by cooking at home. You know what exactly you're putting in there, and you can take as much time as you want to read labels at home without feeling like you have to move on or get home because you've been spending too much time at the store. And cooking at home can also save us a lot of money, especially if we are eating out, and it can teach you new recipes that you can learn in the future. When we talked about reading nutrition labels, the faster you can read them, the faster you know them, the easier it can be to start counting, whether it be your calories, it can start counting the serving sizes, the portion sizes that you need. Just because, like I said, if there is for some reason that we're trying to eat healthier, we want to make sure to read those nutrition labels so that way things become a little bit easier on us when we're trying to use that as motivation to kind of reach our goal of whatever it is our goal is. Choose fresh over frozen over canned. When buying canned, choose lower sodium options. I know we go, maybe we need some beans or something, and we go to the can, there's always an option that says lower sodium or no sodium at all. So there's always those options that you can do. If they don't, I always prefer to get myself the ones that don't have sodium, because if for some odd reason I don't like how salty it is, or it's too salty, I can always add salt. You can always add it. It doesn't mean that you just have to eat it like that. Unless you prefer it, you can always add later on. Use herbs and spices. We always think that maybe the salt is what gives it a taste, but we also have spices and herbs out there that definitely give our food a lot of flavor. It doesn't always necessarily have to be salt. And salt won't leave leaving you thirsty throughout the whole day or with a dry mouth. Sugar. When we're talking about sugar, we want to talk about natural versus added sugar. So our natural sugar, we know that it comes from the types of fruits that we're eating, the vegetables, and the dairy. They do provide energy along with other essential nutrients. Now, with our added sugars, those are the ones that we definitely need to limit or stay away from at all, just because our added sugars are the ones that are just incorporated to the foods and beverages during processing or preparation. They provide you extra calories without nutritional benefits. So when we're talking about those energy drinks, whether it be Red Bulls, Monsters, I know there is options out there that do have no sugar. But, energy drinks, those are ones where we usually just use it for caffeine. There is candies out there like Skittles, those are hard to stay away from, but those are ones that we have to work on to kind of making sure that we're not just continuing adding that into our diet. Soda, and as well as other sugary treats that we definitely like to indulge in whenever we get these cravings. And if we do, we need some energy, we always should just go to fruits. As much as it is, to kind of find those or have time for them, we definitely got to incorporate them into the diet. So applying our knowledge, so everything we've learned so far, when eating out, just making sure that we're planning ahead, making healthy swaps, we're paying attention to dips and drinks. Surprisingly, not surprisingly enough, our dips and drinks do contain a lot of the calories. So a lot of the time when we're looking at a dip, or whether it be ranch or it'd be another thing that we use for eating every day, it does have a lot of calories, and the serving size is super small just for that serving size. So making sure that we watch out for those dips and drinks, because that's where really the calories all add up every single time we eat out. Because the refills, whether it be sodas, the condiments, whether it be with our fries, we're just continuously getting ketchup, ranch, fry sauce, all those things add up. And so that's what happens when we eat out. A lot of times our high calorie intake is coming from the dips and the drinks. Just watching the portion sizes as well. A lot of the time when we do go out to eat, we kind of take our food afterwards. So kind of split it in half, or eat some at home, eating some there, which is also a healthier alternative to just eating everything, because the portion sizes too tend to be bigger when we go out to eat at restaurants. You know, we're ordering appetizers, we're ordering our, you know, an entree, and then all of a sudden we're a dessert. And by then, who knows? The calorie intake could have already been above like 2,000 just for the day, and that was just in one meal. So just watching those portion sizes and always knowing that leftovers can be taken home. Not everything has to be finished right then. And then just practice mindful eating. You know, like I said, just when we go to eat out, it's always okay to get a salad. It's always okay to get something that's healthy on the side. If you know you're going to get a hamburger, well, then just order maybe, you know, a salad on the side rather than fries. Or, you know, your appetizer could be, you know, I don't know if they have, you know, they always tend to have like, you know, Brussels sprouts, different types of appetizers that can be a little bit healthier before we actually eat our main meal. And then we want to make sure when we're at the store, just planning ahead. When you go to the store, like I said, you already kind of know what you're going to get. And if you don't know what you're going to get, making a list right before can help a lot. And focusing on whole, minimally processed foods, just making sure when we're looking through the aisles, we're always told to shop the perimeter. The inside is usually what's going to be all the foods that we tend to kind of, you know, chips, all those kind of foods that we're supposed to stay away from. Making sure to shop the perimeter can be something that's healthier because that's where all our meats are, vegetables, you know, eggs, things like that. Buying in bulk when it makes sense. We make our trips to Costco, making sure we buy in bulk. When we use it in the future, we can always use for our favorite meals. Just reading the labels, like I talked about, making sure we read those labels ahead of time. In the kitchen, choose healthy cooking methods, whether it be baking, roasting, grilling, steaming. Like I said, frying is usually the one that adds so many more calories. We're frying, and it makes the food a little unhealthier. Number two, just consider the portions we're making your plate. Considering those portions, whether it be big or small, you know you're going to have leftovers. Just setting those portions for the week. Getting creative with healthy substitutions. Examples, we have Greek yogurt for sour cream, avocado oil instead of butter. Make it fun. Just try these new recipes and cook it with friends or family. It's always best to eat and best to kind of get complimented on the foods you're making. And you never know, you might make something that you're really going to enjoy for the rest of your time. And some resources just to finish up. So like I said, we are from Central District Health, or I am. If you're interested in learning more, we always offer many different things that are the public health department. We do have a clinic. We have free cooking classes. We have grocery store tours that we can do as well. We do, you know, free health screenings. We check blood pressure, A1C, cholesterol, and BMI out in the community. If you're over the age of 65, we do fit and fall proof classes, tobacco cessation classes, and free quit resources. We also have WIC, parents as teachers, the diaper program, and more. We have so many things, so make sure to check out our the public health department. We can offer so many different things that you may need, or that we can offer, whether it be that you're trying to quit smoking, or if you're just trying to get a free checkup. There's always many different things that we offer that might be at your convenience at the time. But so far, you know, I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen to me. And that's it for today. If you're interested to leave a post-course survey, feel free to. It helps us to kind of know what we need to focus on and do in the future to kind of make sure that we can change whatever possible. Yeah, thank you so much.